Okay. So we need to, and again, you don't have to do this at home, but we need the virtual machine. I actually have mine pinned, but if you do VM and you go to Workstation Pro, so VMware Workstation Pro, we set this up. Anybody, how many did not get this set up?
Well, the computer I'm on didn't have it set up. It was on the computer before, but it's installed but not set up.
Oh, okay. Well, so I can help you set it up if you want at some point. I thought actually the download and installation, setting it up actually went pretty smoothly last time, and it only takes a second to set up if it's downloaded.
I wasn't able to set up my VM for some reason. The Sql Server wasn't working.
Let's see what.
I was also on that computer last time, so I'm probably going to download it.
If you want to re-download, go ahead and do that. This is what I'm doing today is more show.
Okay. Was it under disk images or what?
It was under
I think it was since I didn't actually see it as one file. This right here.
Well, what I would do is download the whole folder.
Right, but when I did that, I didn't see it as a file in there.
From the,
Right, but like I showed this is this image file right here because I didn't see that on the last when I downloaded it at first.
I'm not sure. I always started to be like it was hard to figure. But you've been
Right.
doing it in the other class, right? So you don't need that.
Yeah, so like when you go and do this,
Right.
and then you click this.
Well, actually, we are making a new one. That might be part of it.
Oh,
No. It's fully made. So what we're doing is we're just opening it.
oh, what, oh,
So it's console, and it's just open it.
oh, and it'll be in there. Oh, okay.
So because you're probably creating them in there, right?
Yeah, I did it a couple quarters ago.
Yeah. We're just
Using
existing one, yeah.
Easy.
All right, so when you get here, you can power. Actually, I'm not sure which one I just powered on. I think I'm going to go back. I think I want to power on this one. the winter. Most of you did the fall, which has a SQL Express name in it, or did it just say fall?
Fall.
And is it's a Windows 8?
Yes.
All right, so we will go with this one. Let me shut this one down when it gets to the point where I can. Oh, well. Just click in. This one might be slightly different than yours. But I think you still have to log in as Steve, right? And he at SSW0RD. Yeah. Yeah, power on. It's just that little. It's little. Brains fart. Little triangle. Before this was exhausting, so I need to get reoriented. these things, you can this, although you guys have more screen space than I do. And you can, if you want to have it in a window, you can do that. But I usually maximize it so I don't get confused between the toolbar for the underlying windows and the toolbar up above. Now you might be smart enough not to get confused, but I do. So I'm going to maximize. So I'm just in, when you maximize, you're basically just in the, it's just like you're in Windows. It's in Windows 8 because there were some issues with Windows 10 in the virtual machine, I guess. So I'm going to click and type SQL, and that should pop up this SQL. It should give me, there you go, SQL Server Management Studio. It should pop up there, right? That's what you want. It's kind of a green icon. Go ahead. Just be able to, is it not connected? Just do a backslash. Yeah, just do a backslash. A dot. Yeah. So dot backslash SQL space. The other one, no space.
Oh.
The dot is just standing for let me check it in a moment. Yeah. 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 So when you get into if nothing else, do dot backslash SQL Express if it's not connected in the other name. It should just connect. And what that is, this is a client for SQL Server. It's not SQL Server itself. Okay, so I don't want SQL Server maximized because I want to fit it in my window. I will be really happy when I get the new projectors and I have more real estate on my screen. Mine is really cramped, unlike yours. All right, so this is, as I said, this is just a client app, and it shows you some databases. I'm going to give you a tiny tour, and then we'll build a database and add some tables, and I'll show you just the process of doing it graphically. I'll also show you a tiny bit about how to do it with SQL. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the SQL, but some of you know some. We will do some SQL, but I'm not going to teach the whole thing right up front. There are some databases here, so don't worry about that. That's because I'm using this virtual machine for a lot of different clouds. Do you have any databases? You might have community.
Any system.
Yeah, so this is all you have.
Yeah.
Which is fine. That's how it. Forms usually have system databases. They don't necessarily let you see them. Nice. Logins keeps track of other databases are on the track of all the server level objects. If you corrupt master somehow, or if something happens to master, you will not be able to open up Sql Server. Actually, easy. Mess with master. Command line, but it's a problem. Model template. When you create a new data, you don't give it in. If you wanted elements of your databases, like you wanted every data, any other gives you a database table that added to the model to do that. So the model is a template for all your new databases. And you can add all the parameters you want, but if you don't add any parameters, what you get is just what's in the sense. So that is something you could ask it now that you could. I'm just telling you what these are. For the most part, we're going to ignore them. Yeah. MSDB is for automating things. It's a database for tracking time, calendar, events. People notified if certain events occur, so it tracks notifications, it tracks processes that are on a timer. You can, and in the summer class has a database administration, but you can a lot of things, and as an administrator, you would want to backup, automate integrity. You can automate a lot of things, set them on a calendar, and they'll just run, whenever you told them to run. Once a day, twice a day, once a month, however you want to do it. So you can automate tons of different processes. And you can also set alerts. This is the bane of database administrators' lives, is that you can get a text message process. You can also set up messages like, we're within X distance of filling up the disk space, or there's the database is freezing up because too many people are hitting it at the same time. All those kinds of things can give you an alert. And you can get that. So that's what the MSDB does. The temp database is just a script. It basically creates temporary tables in process. So while you're doing a query, a lot of times it has to create intermediate tables to process a query. They all end up in temp. But then they're gone as soon as they're done with it. Less than a second. But there are some, if you're writing a so you can things you can do. You can create its like an undo. And about setting the transaction, and if you set the But yes, that's the only one we do. No command. There's no undo unless you do a start trend, end trend. Yeah. Significant disaster if you're not careful. All right, so those are the system databases. I'm not going to worry about because those are one of our own. This security folder is server level security. All right, so this is all in server. These are all server things. There's a whole bunch of folders inside of a database, but let's make one of our own before doing this. You guys. Didn't think that so you might want to do that, and that's anybody help? I guess I can. Yeah.
You can regrab the image for the virtual machine. Same place.
Was it a full server or so then do dark backslash. Yeah, backslash. Oh, you do. Now, if it's a full Sql Server, it might be local host. So we see. So.
No, not yet.
Yeah, and what I did was, well, you don't have to.
Yeah, I
The third option is that you made it. Or it could be they're not running. And it's not.
That I had.
So one of the things.
It's not about.
We're just going to do a new data. And a bug box. There are these dialog boxes are all over. They have file groups. Right here is the database name. What do we want a database for? What is this database? Let's do the movies one for whatever reason. All right, so a couple of things I want to show you. It has 2 files, at least. They can have more than that, but they have always at least 2 files. The primary file group, the database, and if you look, there's a lot more information here. You know, it gives you the location, the file name, and some other stuff. But you have an MVDB file, which is the main file, and then you have a log file. So the main file, the data file, stores your table structures that's in the tables. It stores, if you have image files and things, it'll store them. I think I mentioned that they're just links to those in the tables. It stores all the data in the data files. It records all of your transactions since your last backup, basically. And if you do, in terms of the control Z, this is as close as it gets. If you totally hose a database, you can restore from backup and then restore from the log to get the stuff that was from your after your last backup. With the caveat that if you haven't backed it up, you're just hosed. You can put and you have to be fully logging to get gigantic. So anyway, that's, you always have at least those two files. A couple of other things just from a database administrator, and we're not going to worry about this in here, but log file should never be on the same drive as your data file. Because if the hard disk dies, you don't want to lose both, right? And your backups, of course, should be on a totally different. They'll all go away, and you're just crap is lost. Run off. Our files are not going to be big, so big. They're even carried. They're attached to the service, so you have to unattach them in order to move them. I'll show you how to do that. Otherwise, it'll do so you can't copy it. It's in process. It's in use. Yeah, so you have to detach it to copy them. In the real world, database files generally are way too big. These are, unlike Access, these are very, very server-centric. They're based on, stationary machines somewhere, and you access them through networks. Does that make sense? To show you here, you can script everything. If I click on script there, it will create a script for the create database, including the file things. Now, if you were writing the SQL, you actually wouldn't have to write that much. One of the things that the script does is it gives you all your options. In fact, actually, if you wanted to create the database I'm just going to do a new, you could get by with just create database. Actually, the box is going to do. But again, because we're not doing any model, right? But this is SQL. I mean, that's how easy it is to create a database. But I'm going to show you the rest of the dialog box. So under options, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but I just want to show you options that you can set. Most of them have to do with like your language, fairly complex little baby. Most of them to mess with, but generally I would tell you to leave them alone because there are lots of options. Really little tiny things, flags are turned in the database. Databases are complex pieces of software. Every model is simple. I'm going to change it to full. Simple means that it isn't logging. It doesn't actually log your transactions. So again, if you actually, you still have a log file. It's just not logging your transactions. So what happens is if you, you're just, the advantage of simple is that you don't have gigantic log files in there, right? So I changed that to full. the top dialog box down.
The order.
English speaking, American English speaking as opposed to British. So if you say that you're United States, it'll when you automatically treat it as dollars. If you send it, will treat it as pounds, and if you send it euros. And it'll also do other things. It'll, it sets the language, sets the weights and measure standards, and all sorts of that things. They're all part of the collation. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Will it use commas as decimal point and vice versa? I had trouble with that in the past, like where lots of European countries use commas with a decimal point.
It might, and it would also change how you do your dates.
Yeah.
But these are set, when it says default, when the server was installed, it was set for US. So you can change it. It doesn't have to follow the default. Should we do Albanian? Japanese. I would suggest not changing that. But you can. I mean, it's nice to know you can have it in any language. And you'd probably have to figure out what some of the differences are. I have no idea what's the difference between Albanian 100 bin and Albanian 100 bin 2.
I still want to look that up. I'm not confused. I want to know.
Our coalition, I'm pretty sure, is
Racial story.
somewhere in here. There's just standard English, but generally it defaults to American English when you do an install. It's an American company, but you can do that. Anyway, all I have to do, mostly all I really have to do in here is give it a name and do OK. And now we have a movies database over here. So all the rest was just show and tell, as I said. The dialog boxes are more complex than we really need. We could also have had exactly the same result by just typing those 3 words.
And so you guys in the dialog box, you just click new query?
Yes, new query is a table. Graphically, I'm actually, so here's a question. There's 2 or 3 ways to do it even graphically. I'd like to show all the people get upset in one.
Show it all the way. Show what it's actually doing. Because when you look at it from a couple different ways, it's just
Just going to close that. All right, so when I open up, there's a little plus there. And when I open it up, it gives me, these are all the folders that belong to any database. All right, so you can do a database diagram. I'm going to show you that in a few minutes because that's actually quite useful. This is for tables. We can create our tables. I don't know that we're going to do much with views, although we might do a little bit. Views are basically saved queries. They're ways of filtering your data for particular users. That's why you might create a view that's specifically for HR users. You might create a view that's specifically for customers. Just a query that's bringing stuff together for people. But for the most part, we're not going to do that. Synonyms are if you need to rename stuff, give them aliases. I'm not going to worry about that. Programmability is when you want to write functions, store procedures, and triggers. I might show that. I'm not going to make you guys do that, but I'll show it. at some point. Service broker we don't need to worry about. Remember how I said you could automate things? The service broker is how you automate things. You go in there and set up what you want to automate and do that. Storage is really just about, I think storage is new, and it relates to something they've added to SQL Server, which allows you to store documents both in this database and in the file system simultaneously. Used to be if you had your document in the database, you could only access it through the database. Microsoft initiated a thing where you can access it through the file system as well as the data. And security, which we will talk about at some point, which is where you can set up users and roles. Whereas this is the server load. There's actually one for every database. Inside of every database has all these. And this is not a typical, although you'll find that MySQL is a bit simpler. You know, and some of the others that you look at, SQL Server is sort of designed for it, so it might be a little bit more complex than many. So I'm going to do tables, and if I open that little plus there, there's system tables and file tables, both of which are empty because we don't have either of those. And we actually don't need either of those. We're going to create our own table. And just like everything else, what I do is I right-click, and then it says table. Used to say new table. Why it just says table now, I don't know. But it's the same thing. When I click on that, it gives me a designer over here. So in this designer, you can give a column name. So this is music. Let's just say music key, whatever that's going to be. And then you have to give it a data type. And we haven't talked much about data types, and I don't think I want to go through all of these. But I'll do a real quick, breezy one. There's like 4 of them that I use over and over again, and most of them are fairly.
Would it be a movie key or?
What?
Would it be movie key instead of music?
Oh,
key?
music. Yes. Okay.
Okay, because I was trying to figure out how they
We're
were
the thing with the
related.
soundtracks. It's fine.
We could do.
I don't have a movie database.
Did you make it? I mean, we made the
Yeah, we made
database.
it. So I didn't make it.
Oh, so you can make it. Just right-click. New. Just call it movies, and then press OK. All right. So data types, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. Big int. Anybody have a guess?
64-bit.
64-bit int. Binary. And the 50 is just suggest a binary. Put a file, you know, like a picture or something in that. Bit is what it uses for true or false. Bit is 0 or 1. Weirdly, in the designer, it says
Because it's a character.
it's just character.
If we're characters.
I always call it car, so whatever. But character is probably deprecated because the new one is in car. Anybody know what it is?
Integer char.
No, it's actually Unicode.
Yeah, two dots.
This is ASCII. The in-car is Unicode. For most things, it doesn't matter. The first 255 characters of Unicode are ASCII, right? They just incorporated the ASCII. So if you're writing in English all the time, ASCII is sufficient. If you want to occasionally enter Cyrillic or something, you might want to use Unicode.
or a copyright symbol or.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of those other symbols too you probably would want, the broader set. Unicode includes every language, I mean the full set of Unicode includes every language on Earth and a few that are not real languages.
Klingon.
It has Klingon, it
Little
has
snowman
Elvish.
figure,
Yeah, what?
Little snowman figure. I've seen all the weird stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot, well, there's a lot of like picto, you know, like, what would you call them? There's a word for them.
Pictographs.
Yeah, there's another word. Like the emoticon type things. But there's also Elvish and Klingon and a few other fantasy languages. Because you think of the people that make these kinds of things, I guess.
Oh, it has both Tangwar and Quenya. Alright.
So Unicode is a bigger one. Anyway, and then there's date time. I think they're fairly obvious. Date is fairly obvious. Date time used to be the only thing in SQL Server. That meant you always had the whole date and the whole time. You couldn't separate them. You could separate them in display, but you couldn't separate them in the field. It was always date time. If you didn't enter the time, it was just all zeros. If you entered only the time, then the date was zeros. But they've separated that out. And there's some offset dates. I'm not going to worry about that. The offset is how far offset are you from Greenwich Mean Time. Decimal is useful. A lot of people prefer it to money. There is a money data type in here. I'm not expecting you to remember all this. I just want you to know that there are lots of data types. And one of the things that separates products, so in the ANSI standards, they said you had to have an integer data type. You had to have a float data type, something that allows decimal points, right? You had to have a fixed character, and you had to have a variable character width. You had to have some kind of date time, right? You had to have some dates and time stuff. But they don't specify what you have to name it, and they don't specify what specificity you have to give it. And so each product has its own list of data types. And it's a couple of people I think is in a different class. But the hardest thing, like if you created a database in SQL Server here, if you wrote it in SQL, all the SQL would be identical with MySQL except the data types. And so MySQL won't read it unless you convert all of those data types. And it's the same with Oracle. You know, if you move it from SQL Server to Oracle, the data type names are different, so everything has to be redone. Oracle's a big enough product that you can buy conversion tools, but it's a bit of a pain. The reason why decimal is usually more popular than money, you can set the specificity of decimal. It has two arguments. 18.0 here means that it has 18 total digits with 0 decimal places. If I wanted to do money, say in the thousands, I could do 6.2, which would mean total number allowed is 6. There would only be 6 digits allowed. 2 of those 6 digits would be on the decimal side. So you can set your precision. The thing that people don't like about money is that it always has 4 decimal places. And that just bothers people. Banks, I don't know why 4 either. Banks go out farther than 4. And people look at 2, so I don't know. So why 4? But anyway, as I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these. Float is just a different version of decimal. Float is kind of like double. You just don't have to specify it'll just give you however many decimals and however many. Geography, geometry, those are recent, and they're for if you want to use this for mapping and location type stuff. Image is deprecated. Int I use a lot, but int is 32-bit, so you can outrun it. I mean, if you have too big a number. The big int will handle most numbers beyond that. There's money. So notice then there's in-car. And there's also in varchar. Real quickly, anybody know the difference between in car and in varchar? Or char, whichever. Kind of mentioned. So in car is fixed. So if you say that you have 50 characters in an in car and you enter 10, it's still going to write 50 spaces to the disk. So in car always writes the fixed width. It always writes the same number of spaces to the disk no matter what. So the fixed width tends to be fairly inefficient of disk space. The varchar is variable character width. So if you say 50 spaces there and you write in 10, it collapses and only writes 10 to the disk. So it's much more efficient for disk space, but it involves more processing time because with every entry you have to figure out the width of the field, right? You have to calculate the width before you write it. So the question is, and it's not a question that has an answer, you have to kind of depend on what you're doing. Which is more valuable to your database, disk space or processor time? And the answer varies. It depends on what you're doing. Right? So I still use NCAR for things that are fixed, that like a social security number or a student ID or a zip code or something that has a fixed size. So there's no reason to calculate the width if they're all going to be the same size, right? But if it's variable, then I'll let it. The other thing I'll mention real quickly, I know we're taking way too long on this, is that the maximum size is 255. 255 is a number you'll see a lot. Anybody knows? 1 byte is 8 bits, and a half in 1 byte is 255. So you can store 255 things in a byte by the varied addresses. You'll see that come up a lot, and it means that that's how they're basically how they're indexing things. So 255 is the is how much you can have in NCAR or in varchar. There is an in varchar max, which is essentially a blob file. So you could. It actually has a limit of 1.5 gigs, I think. So you have a novel in there. Probably several novels, actually. Yeah.
How big is a database?
The database is off at, I think it's like 2 megabytes. But a real database can get into the trillions of bytes. There are a lot of terabyte databases these days, and there are some that are into the petabyte size, which is trillions of bytes.
Would that be like a government database?
Yeah, that's sort of like, well, even like Verizon or something. Think about every single phone call, every single text, everything being recorded in real time in a database, and think of how big that is. And then the government doesn't create those, but they want to search those databases. So. Which is harder than they make it sound. But I'm going to see here, there's small int, small money. There's a timestamp. There's a time database, I think, too. Time is always in military time. Again, you could convert that in the display, but in the database, it's military time. Unique identifier. There also is XML, but anyway, so let's just make this an integer.
Can you say again how you got to that window?
Sure. I'm going to cancel it. Actually, I'll just. No, I won't save it. So you just right-click on tables, and then you do table, and there you are.
Right click.
So I'm going to do a movie key. So what we're just going to do is, yeah, and I'm just going to do it as an int. I'll show you how to do auto numbers later. If you want an auto number, I guess I could show you. There's down here are the properties. There's identity specification. If I click on that and say is identity and change it to yes, and I can help you guys do this, it will make it an auto number, which means it'll automatically just do the numbers for you. To make it a primary key, there is a little key up here, or you can just right click on it and set primary key.
You have aggregate keys.
Yes, you can. To do that, you have to hold down the control and select multiple columns.
So it's like that, you're supposed to be able to progress it. It just takes a while.
It is, yeah. So let's just do movie title. I'm not going to do a lot here. I've spent enough time talking about that. That would probably be in varchar, right? And you can type up here to get there. That's var binary. I went in varchar. And 50 is just suggested. It can go 255. And since there's no additional cost for doing that, I usually do. You know, because if you set it at 50 and you got a really long title, you know, like the, oh, what was the, I'm trying to remember if the was a Jim Carrey movie.
Judy Newman's.
Yeah.
Like, from To Wong Fu to Judy Newman.
Do spaces count?
Yes, don't put spaces in. You shouldn't have spaces in here, in your names.
No, I don't, but
For the
like,
255 count.
yeah.
Oh. Yes, spaces count.
And if you set the indoor car max, is that the same thing as setting 255?
No, it sets it to 1.5 gigabytes. And what happens with that is that the table can't store it. So what it stores is a pointer to where that file is.
Does
Which-
YouTube do that?
What?
Does YouTube do that?
There's two, in a database. So basically the maximum size for a row, you don't really need to know this, but it's 14K. No row can be larger than 14 kilobytes. And that's because of the way they store things, it's the structure. So when you have something in it that is half a gig or something, or even a few megs, it just does a pointer. It just says, point to where that is in the rest outside the file. So the only bad thing about that, because you can still retrieve it, you can do all of that, but you can't search its content. Does that make sense? Because it's not part of the table. So, movie title, let's just do movie year. And all I'm going to do for this table. I'm going to leave that as in-car, and I'm going to make it 4. So that says that I'm going to enter a character, and it's going to have 4. It's going to be a 4. You could make it an int, but I think that might make sense if you're ever going to do math with the years, which sometimes you might. So, I mean, that's a decision you could make. So this is a character type. I can't add, subtract, divide, or multiply it. If I made it an int, it would be a numeric type, and then I could. I suppose, you might want to know if there's 2 versions of a movie, how many years apart they are or something.
And so the character type, can you give an example of what the end character or?
For a computer, a character is different than a number. Essentially, it's like say it was done in 1984 for some reason. It's like the number has quotes around it. And it treats it as a, whereas a number would have no quotes around it, right? So this one, when you look at it, look into it, you'll either throw an error or you'll end up with 1984.20. Whereas if it looks around it, it would do the math. So I don't know, whichever one you want, yeah.
Can you make that a little larger?
I can try, yeah.
Is that far? Read some of it.
I think,
Control key screws up the mouse.
well, is that better?
Yeah. I think I did it all wrong.
Yeah, then some stuff is missing from your screen at all times.
Yes, whoops.
Yeah.
So
You
it's,
probably lower the resolution of your virtual machine just so that everything's there, but just,
it won't let me with that. That's why my virtual machine is such a screwed up mess anyway. Not only my virtual machine, my whole, I don't know if you've ever looked at my window here, but it's all cramped into a thing in the middle because of that.
right.
It doesn't handle finer resolutions. There's supposed to be a new one coming.
I was going to make your resolution smaller just so that everything appears bigger.
But that would be, I'm not sure if it would handle that resolution, because that would be a finer resolution.
Wouldn't it be a less fine resolution?
But to make things smaller usually means higher resolution.
I said a lower resolution.
Yeah, but I don't know that it would work, maybe. This will work for now. I'm just going to save this table. And you can name it here. So I'm going to name it movie. Okay, so that's one way to create a table. I'm going to show you another way in a moment. But does this make sense to you as a way? So I'm going to close this. You don't have to close it. When I do tables over here, notice that it doesn't show up. I need to refresh, and then it shows the DB movie. Its object window over here does not automatically reflect what you do in the other dialog. It used to in the very first version, but it crashed so often that the Microsoft severed the connection. So you have to refresh objects over here. They claim it's a feature, but it was mostly to stop the bugs.
Accept that.
Okay. So I'm going to show you another way to make a table. This way is my preferred way, but I'm not expecting you to do it. So let's say I wanted to create a table for actor. So I'm going to do create table actor. So to get this window, I did new query. I did it a while ago. It's been open for a while, but new query. And it gives you this window. You can also get it by, on the database, you can do right-click new query. So so put a lot in here either. I'm going to do actor key, and I'm going to make it that auto number again. See if I can get this all on screen, which is always an issue. I'm going to break this line just to keep it on screen. You do not have to. So this creates we're creating a table. I'm creating a column called actor key. It's going to be the type entity. Identity is for auto number. 1 means start at 1 and count by ones. Right? You could start at 1,000 and count by ones, or you could start at 1,000 and count by twos if you really want to, or fives. The primary key makes it a primary key. I'm going to do actor name in var car. This is something I didn't do on the last one, but I'll do this. Again, I would make it that. And I'm going to add, and again, I'm just breaking it to keep it on screen. I'm going to say not null.
Does the N have to be capitalized?
It does not. One of the nice things about SQL is it is not case sensitive. So the not null means, anybody have a guess?
So you can't have nothing.
Right, it doesn't allow it to be empty. So you have to have an actor name in there. The null is, so when you have a primary key, it's not null by default.
Okay.
This is not null, and if you do want to allow, you can just leave it blank, or you can add just the word null without not.
Line, basically, you just put a space after the parentheses, right?
Yeah, just a space here and then a comma at the end. It's the comma that actually tells it that the line's breaking. So I'm going to do one other thing here. What would we want? Actor, country, actor. Anything we want to know about an actor? Okay, actor, age. What do you do if they're long dead? Yeah.
Date of birth, maybe.
Oh, actor date of birth.
Actor date of birth would be better if we know it. But so because we might not know this, we could do this as so date of birth, again, we could do it as an integer if we want a 4-digit year. Or do we want the whole date?
Let's do the date.
All right, so we could do date.
Does that allow the 4-digit date?
No, if you do date, it's going to want month, year, and day. So, but I am going to allow it to be null. Now the word null here is optional because it's the default. Does that make sense? And then I'm going to just make this table.
I don't have any numbers on all that.
What?
I don't have any numbers. Yeah.
Oh, you can get those tools. So you need to go to options, text editor, all languages, line numbers. Looks like I have word wrap in some too. So I might have wrapped already. So going through that again. Tools, options, text editor, which is down a ways, right? And then I did all languages. And then over to the side are line numbers. Tools options is where you can change literally everything about the environment. You can change all your colors, you can change all the. So go down to all languages. You don't have to set it for all languages. You could, I mean, it has, if I open the languages, there's, well, actually, there's just general or tabs. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to do OK, get out of there. The numbers are, you know, can be kind of useful. So I'm just going to, couple of things. Am I in, before I run this, so that I'm using the right database, I'm going to run that. And the way you run it is you go up to the execute with the exclamation point. And then I'm going to run, and you can run one command at a time by just highlighting it. Now if I can get, so I just highlighted the table, and if I execute, it'll say it completed it. Okay. Boy, that's the trouble with this Zoom. Right? So I just highlighted the table, and I went up and executed to run it. Ran it. It won't run again. What is the error? Activated for. Oh, you know what? He was missing a comma. I did not know.
So much in the library.
Yeah.
Did you execute or debug?
Execute, don't debug. Debug never stops. Now again, when I come over, I have to go to tables, refresh, and then you'll see that actor is there. Okay, so this is my preferred way. If you know what you're, this is the fastest, most efficient way, you can just script it real quickly, right? But I just want to show it to you. We will be learning some SQL as we go on. If you think you can handle setting up the tables this way, you're welcome to try. Okay, but I want to show you a third way. And the third way is actually the way I would suggest doing these things, unless you're good with SQL. So I'm going to make a database diagram. And one of the nice things about this diagram, not only does it show you the database as you've done it, but it is live. Changes you make in the diagram will change the database. So I'm going to right-click New Database Diagram. You're going to get this dialog box. It basically says you do not have the support items. Do you want them? Yes, you want them. So just say yes. And it will say that every time you are in a new database and want to make a thing. Now, I've only got the 2 tables. And you can do this without any tables. But I'm going to just highlight those 2. I'm going to add them. And then in my database diagram, you'll see these are, see if I can get it down to where you can see it. So I've got actor, actor name, actor date of birth. It's got the keys there, right? There are some things you can do, like if in table view, there's some options. So one of them is there's the standard, but there's also the column names. Well, that's what we got. Let's do standard. Standard view, notice it looks a lot like the designer. And it is a designer. You can actually add fields and change things and do things in there. I'm going to change just for table view column names, goes back to that.
Sorry, what did you write?
The table, the top of it.
No, before there.
Oh, to get the diagram? Database diagrams?
Can you show the I'm sorry, but can you show the SQL with the actors?
Yeah.
So you right-clicked on
Database diagrams, new diagram. And then it gives you, just say yes to that. And then add your 2 tables. I'll come back in a moment to these. So one of the things you can do in this database diagram, if you just click in the white space, you can add a new table. So I'm going to do a table. And yeah, I right-clicked. So I just in the white, anywhere in the white space. New table. I'm going to name this table movie actor because it's going to be basically a linking table, right? I'm going to do OK, and it gives me the designer. So I'm going to do actor key, and it will be an int. And I'll do movie key, and it will be an int. These should be not allow nulls. Okay. And I'm going to, what? I can make these a key by, if I double, I'm holding down the shift or the control.
Probably right, just right click on the block arrow.
I'm holding down the shift key. I was just looking to see what I was doing. And having done that, I can set the primary key, and notice it gives me a composite key.
Holding down shift and
Yeah, it's not working. Oh, there it is.
So you have to do it in the gray over here.
oh, I see. Okay.
What do you do, hold on, shift?
Yeah. And then I just added the key. So I could remove the key, or I can add the key, and I could do that forever. So I'm going to go back to column view just because it's more. And I want to show you how to do a relationship. You can do relationships in SQL. You can do relationships in the other view too, but this is the easiest way to do them, particularly if you're first starting. I'm going to, have you ever done this in Access? I'm going to grab the key. I'm going to drag it to the actor key here. It pops up a dialog box. It's creating a foreign key. It's really, really important that you look and see if these are the right tables and the right fields. So I did, I'll do it again, but actor key. If they're the wrong fields, I mean, it may work just fine, but then when you try to enter data, you won't be able to. So I do OK, and I do OK. This actually lets you set some properties on the foreign key relationship. I'm not sure I want to go into them too much. There are some things like cascade delete, which I suggest you never do, and cascade update, which is not so horrible. Cascade delete means if you delete a record in the parent table, it'll also delete the children, which sounds really cruel, and it can be. So I'm going to do OK, and see how it has a relationship there. Right, so what I did, I'm going to delete my relationship. Okay, so see the actor key there? I've got to bring it down. Grab that, drag to the actor key here, and just let go. Except I lost it. Come on, drag. There we go. Then it gives you this dialog box. If the tables are correct and the fields are correct, just do OK and OK, and it gives you the relationship. This is the one side. This looks, which looks like a chain link, is supposed to be an infinity sign, is the mini sign. Notice it doesn't mark these as foreign keys. It does not have an FK or anything in there to let you know. So I'm going to do it from the movie key. I'm going to drag from the movie key to the movie key. It's important that you go to the right field with this. And then if I click on this, notice it says movie, movie key, movie, actor, movie key. And then I do OK, and I do OK. So I've created those relations.
The key didn't end up with the key icon next to it for some reason.
Oh, so when you do that, what I did here in the
The original one, also that one.
so you have to just add the key, right? So if you didn't have a key here, that one we did. So I'm just going to go table view standard. You can right click on it, and you can remove or add the primary key. You might not even have to move it to a different view. And you can keep doing this. So the easiest way to do this, to create it in the database, is to take your diagram that you've made in Visio or your other thing, and we go into this diagram mode in SQL Server, and then just recreate it. So I could do another new table, and I can keep adding tables. You can save it. So I'm just going to real quickly just do save all. It's going to ask me to save my thing. So it's notice it's asked the movie, but we've made changes to all three tables. And I'm going to say yes. Oh, and then it's asking me if I want to save my query. I guess I will. And then again, if I go over here to tables and refresh, I have actor, movie, and movie actor. So the table I created in the diagram is there. There's also, if you look under movie actor and I look under keys, you can see that it actually did create, it has a PK, the primary key, and it did create the foreign keys. It just isn't showing them in the diagram. So I guess what I'm suggesting is that unless you feel really competent with the SQL code, which you're welcome to do, this is probably the easiest way to create the database, is to just use the designer and recreate it.
But you can't import that diagram. You have to
No, you can't.
create it.
It's okay.
Yeah. There,
Could you put the tables in that you made, your individual tables, and then from that, make a diagram?
sure.
Could put the tables in the table field. With any table field.
Well, I mean, you could, so the table that I had, like the movie,
Yeah, like just hand.
yeah, you can hand do the tables and then add them
diagram,
all.
and then you can add the connector.
Right. Yeah, so you could just create the tables and then go in here to do the relationships. You can also do relationships in the other mode. It's just harder. It means going into the properties and finding the things and setting them, but you can. And in SQL you can do it too. You can create the relationships in SQL. Just like I did primary key, you can kind of do foreign key. Has a little bit of a couple of little differences. I'll show you couple of other little things. I'm taking longer than I wanted to, but questions on this? You had a few. Again, yeah.
I don't have foreign things down below, even though I have the relationships directly.
Yeah, it won't show a foreign key. It's though you don't have a foreign. Did you refresh over here?
I did, it also finished off with them.
Did you save?
No.
Yeah, so until you save, nothing over here is done. So you can do everything you want in here, and until you save, it's not real. Okay. The other thing that I probably should show you, I think it's under table and database designers. There's this little check mark that says prevent saving changes that require table recreation. And I'm showing you this now because as you go through this process, you'll want to delete something and add something and add something to a table. Underneath everything that you do in the designer, it is SQL. And you can't actually change like a key field in a table without dropping it and recreating it. You don't have to do that in the designer, but if this stays checked, it won't let you do it. So if you uncheck that, then it'll just do what you'll tell it to. The reason why that's checked is that if you have data in the tables, you could lose it, right? So, but if you're just in the design phase, it shouldn't matter. The other thing that I want to say real quickly, just as a general thing, before you, and I'm going to have you guys enter some data into these tables, I mean, when you build your thing, but before you enter the data, you should get your design pretty well set up. In real life, I mean, you can make any change you want as long as you're in the design phase without any real cost. But once you've committed data to the database, some changes become very difficult or nearly impossible. So you really want the design well worked out and well tested before you commit your data to it. All right. Real quickly, I'll show you how to, if I wanted to add data, the easiest way, and again, there's SQL ways to do this. Notice how I right-clicked on the table movie and I said edit top 200 rows. If I click that, this won't work, by the way, if you have more than 200 rows. I could enter a movie. What movie do we want? What?
Moonstruck.
Moonstruck. That's an old movie, which I have not seen in a long, long time. I have no idea what the year for that, 80 something? Notice I didn't put anything in the movie key. That's because it was auto-numbered. So you can't enter into an auto-number field. So what I did, I right-clicked on movie, and I did edit top 200 rows. And you can do this with any table. Notice the data is still there. The data is saved. Oh well, let's see. I guess I could do Star Wars. The original Star Wars I saw, but it was like 1970 something.
75.
I remember standing in line for it. Notice that the red mark here, a lot of people get freaked out by that. That just means the row isn't saved yet. As soon as I click out of the row is saved. It saves it row by row to the disk. That's so that you don't end up with entering 1,000 records and then your thing crashes and you've lost them all. Right? Every single row is written. As soon as you leave the row is written to disk. Does that make sense? Oh, you might not have set the auto number. If it doesn't, then you'll just have to manually enter it.
Maybe it wasn't.
I can drop that.
Yeah, it would have been 70.
Matter.
I was 14, 15 when I saw it.
All right, so two more things I want to show you, and then the rest of the time you can work, or if we can give you time next time to work. All right, I want to show you how to move these files because you asked about the thumb drive thing and stuff. There's two ways you can do this. One way is you can script it. So you can, I actually don't. I want to do tasks, generate scripts, and so this is just the first page. I can say to script everything. It's going to script the entire database and all of its objects. I'm going to do next. I'm going to do it to a new query window. I'm also going to go into advanced. And where it says types of data to script, I'm going to schema and data. Normally it only scripts the structure of the tables. And I'll go through this again with you. This is probably not how you want to move it anyway. So it creates an SQL script of the database and all the tables and everything. So you could take that script, the files might have to be modified, or I just delete it. But you could run this in your database somewhere else and it will recreate the database. Right? It'll just, everything that's there, it'll recreate. The other way, so I'm closing that, you can right click on a database and you can tasks detach. It may not allow me to detach. If it says it has 2 active connections. So where are those connections coming from? Okay, so I might have to restart to do this. if it has connections, wonder where the address. Oh, but the easiest way to do it is to restart the studio, because it won't let you disconnect if there's any connections to that database. So in the databases, movies, tasks, detach. I'm going to do OK. Now, movies has disappeared from my list. So the files are, this is a bad, it's not a horrible path, but it's a big. So I'm going to go to local disk C, program files, Microsoft SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server Express, MSQL, data. And you'll see there's movies and movies log. You can move them now because they're detached, or copy them. Otherwise, if you try to copy them or move them without detaching them, you'll get an error saying you can't move them because they're being used. Yeah, so this folder. So it's basically, let's go all the way out, I guess. So you go to local disk, program files, SQL Server, SQL Server Express, MSSQL, data. And you should take both files. And you can just put them in the data folder on your own machine or another machine, or you can put them in any root level folder. Do you know what I mean by root level? You can't put them in My Documents. You can't put them in desktop. It can't be profile specific. It can't be, in a part of your Windows that's part of a user's profile. It has to be root level, which means basically off a C drive somewhere.
Scoot up to the
Sure.
red ones.
I was just going to, let's copy. I was just going to go to get Notepad or something. I'll go back. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Whatever I just did there.
Also, when I X out of that and then reopened it, it was just disappeared.
Yeah, they will
Oh,
disappear.
it's supposed to, that's.
I don't need Notepad Plus. I was just going to do open Notepad. Never mind.
So when you check them,
So you can copy them, yeah. So let me go back to desktop. So you just copy the movies and the movies log. And they're not super huge. Sure, just a sec. I was just looking, they're 3 megabytes. Program files. Microsoft SQL Server, MSSQL 12. It's easier to navigate in there. Just by finding go to program files. Just keep clicking through the folders.
Program files x86.
No, it's the other program files. It's not the x86. Okay, so when you have them in your other database,
There's nothing like that.
uh,
I can't face this thing, so.
did you detach it?
Yes, I followed it.
Okay.
I can try again.
Where were you trying to paste it?
Just in WordPad.
Oh, that one.
I don't want to. Where do you paste it?
You just have to paste it like a, if you wanted to copy it, it'd be to a disk or something.
It's terrible.
I will watch it again.
If you talk about video, you need to watch it again. Yeah,
You have, did you make a database?
You don't have to, okay, so you have a Google, a Gmail account, right?
Right.
So you have to have it, it's over on the left-hand side, it's with the messaging stuff, you have to turn on Google Hangouts, in which case it will only let you hang out with people you're already friends with or contacted with.
Okay.
So you emailed them before?
Nope.
Okay, just add spconger@gmail.com, and you should be able to see the stuff you do.
Okay.
They are recorded, so you don't have to see it live, so you should be okay. Google Hangouts is only for watching stuff when it's going live.
Oh, really? So it's not like collaborating?
No, well, you can, but it's like, it's a streaming thing. So, he's got it currently streaming right now, so somebody in his class, they could probably be watching it. But he's also recording it, so if you want to watch it again
What
later.
I'm doing is it's showing me the,
So I'll try to figure that out.
it's showing me the hard disk.
Here, pull up your data.
Okay.
We should do that. The reason why we're not giving you that is that it's showing you the language in that virtual.
Oh, you use the touch.
All right, just pull up your data.
Oh, there you go. That is weird. though.
All right, this should be your hangout stuff over here.
So let me show you how to bring them back. So once you're in here,
Don't worry about that.
you want to do attach,
That's you. That's like, what do you want to say?
and then you want to do add. And add should go automatically to your data file. Now, if you put them somewhere else, you'll have to navigate to them, right? And the movies is still there, so I just do that. I do OK. It shows me both files. And then if I do OK, it will be back. So if you're moving the actual files, it's attach, detach them, and then reattach them, right? So it's back. So you can go to tasks, detach, and that will disconnect them from the server. And then you can do whatever you want with them. It's only if you want to move them.
And where would you?
If you had a SQL Server at home or something.
So, yeah, a driver.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Let's try to quick chat.
Problem saving.
Okay. Oh, so let's go. I think so. So yeah, just one of these.
Yeah. All right.
I thought that I was.
Don't worry about it.
There it goes.
I'm not sure. What file did you open? Did you script it?
Yeah.
You're not trying to, you basically tried to call him. That's what happened. It's not very good. All right, don't worry about it. So look at it. Hang on.
Well, there's nothing there. So,
Take this.
okay, so, but it won't actually. So,
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
want to.
You just want to watch the
You
videos,
can
right?
look at
So don't worry about it.
the design. Edit the top. Yeah, but double clicking it won't do your job. Okay, so it took way more time than I need to figure out. Did you figure it out?
Also,
Okay.
the troubleshooter person wants a lot on this.
So program files. That looks like it is going to the engine on.
You don't want to check.
I think that's outside the.
That's you calling.
No, well, yes, this is, you're looking at the version of standard on every
Doesn't look like you can watch this video after you.
Yeah.
Yes, another video is just sending me an email by.
It should be on like the announcements, right?
Yeah. Announcement.
So when you guys do this together for the groups, there will be one exercise where you make a database just as an individual. There'll be a pizza database and have a few records in it. But when you do it as a group, what you probably should do is decide on what machine to work on, right? And just keep it there, because you really can't split up the work. You know, other than I'd have to teach you something about imports and things, but generally it's just one of them will be, you know, for the group. All right, I think I'm done. They're probably done too, right? That took longer than I meant.
You went into depth on another version.
Yes. I don't expect you to remember, but as you play with it, hopefully little pieces will come back.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you can close out everything. Some things like the scripts and stuff you don't necessarily have to save. With the virtual machine, it's actually, when you're done with it, it's not about close the power down inside it, Windows. And if you haven't done Windows 8, it's a bit of a pain. There's in the corner, if you mouse down to the lower corner here, there's it brings up what they call the charms. One of the things Windows did away with was the charms, probably for good, because they're a pain to get to.
Yeah.
And then settings has the power setting, and then you can shut down. You don't have to do that, but it, as I said, it makes it. What I have found is that when you save, you just pause it and save settings and things. If something goes wrong, you're more screwed than if you shut it down and if something goes wrong, they can usually fix it then. But it won't let you do anything with it if it's frozen when it's it has settings saved. I guess I will give you time, probably pretty much open lab on Monday, to finish your designs. I will look at your designs this weekend if you've turned them in, because it'd really be good to have a good, you know, solid design for your database before we get in and build it. And then I'll come and help you, you know, I can help you build too on Monday.
Are you
So-
talking about the vinyl diagram? Or the-
Yeah, the vinyl diagram, and then if you want to look at the pizza one, you can. The pizza one has a diagram pre-made of the tables, and it has some of the data.
I have a question.
Sure.
for you.
So we're working on this. Question. Initial question was, what type of relationships exist between them?
No, it's not.
It took me a minute, but then I realized it was
I hope it's not.
many.
That's exactly right.
Okay, and so then the Lincoln table, I was trying to, it's one, it's one of many.
Right, so you just
So
want
you
to
have
do,
to
change
go over to the
this to
side.
one.
That, this is where I'm really.
Yeah, I'll give you
One and.
Right click this.
Actually, that's just,
Right click.
One or more.
Yeah, it's one.
That's just one, you could have any, one ingredient that's a part of it.
Yeah.
One ingredient.
And one recipe could have many ingredients.
Okay, but the only thing is that one and only one, or?
Yeah, it's what I do.
Yeah, if you,
You don't want to just click out of it without turning it.
just like turning off the machines, we don't want to do.
Okay, so this is.
No, you click the
Yeah.
off, it comes out the windows.
I always have to look at this.
No,
Okay, and so that would be.
That's one.
And they come out the window after.
It should be zero.
Was it the history?
The answer is
That one
yes.
should be
Yeah, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, this is.
anyways.
Always includes
Zero, four.
Yes.
That's-
All right.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hi, see you Monday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, right.
Well, it's just a, it's cost,
Because theoretically, you might not have an ingredient percent.
you might have entered the recipe one and two, and it's just, I don't know why you do that, but I'm not too worried about the zeros and the ones.
Okay, okay. And then I guess.
So you, in your logic, you just said that you have no recipes that don't have additional ingredients, so you could.
There you go.
Alright, so.
Okay, it looks very good.
Whether you have to require the different.
Let's see, oh, sure. I was just going
I
to.
put the rest of the one, just like a copy there.
So what should we do?
If you like that.
Do we need to have that by Monday? He just said,
I think we should.
Yeah.
no, he just said we can, change it in on Monday. Oh, so we'll just do it on Monday then. Nice. Alright, so this week, we get caught up on stuff.
Pretty much. The idea of like trying to take this stuff and.
Show the answer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sweet. All right, so we'll be ready for our diagram on Monday.
Alright, cool.
Well,
See you
he
guys.
said he was gonna go over there, so he'll probably. I really like it.
Yeah, it's actually.
Yeah. 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 So, yeah, honestly, I'm actually learning.
Right.
I was working this one. And it's actually.
And then I got this the earlier stuff.
So what I think.
With how do you pull into a tiny bit?
No.
Sorry.
So. This is the.
Oh, there's still.
So are you at Green Spark or you at? Alright, so let's finish
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it is a many, and
IGH spelled.
yes, I yeah, I just. And I just have the ITC in there in that space. I sort of.
I've never heard that before.
So that's what I had.
Yeah.
I would go to like Microsoft. But I think for Ginsburg,
I was
you
right.
do,
Like almost a whole point. Yeah. And so. Okay, well, cool.
But I will. Oh, I didn't figure out how to.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't.
I guess
For me, it makes a lot of sense. I did it just wrong.
I know, I'm waiting for
Look at
that
it.
right now, I'm mostly just review to go.
Oh,
So, yeah, it's just so. Yeah, that's exactly.
Just. So. Well, now it's. Now, what were you saying? One more?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I would actually find the other one. Yeah, and so, I mean, I have no. He also said that it is actually dry.
Yeah, see, I asked about that.
So, we're definitely, I just think want to turn around to do.
I have done most of
Yeah.
one.
So, yeah.
I got it alarm. I got the first one. Did you buy the book?
Yeah, I'd like to get it, or we're gonna say, I do that.
I mean, yeah, but I also took a class similar to this. Business database. Or I don't have.
The other thing is it might have asked you what it's.
I don't remember, it was a role instructor. Oh, I know.
Be here next week. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You'll be here on Monday.
I'll go ahead and send off that. Yeah.
Can you make it? I didn't think there was.
We're too cheap. We don't want to buy it.
So.
Okay, cool. So I'll work on that. Definitely. I've done one class. And then, so I'll get it in by Friday.
That's not, Sql Server is good.
Yeah. So this one, I would link down, well. It's gonna look good. I don't think it'll be.
Down one second.
Yeah, I saw this, actually. How do you do the drink?
Well, I just took the trial. Yeah, I don't want.
Penny jar.
Yeah, so we're just like, I have what I put together for part two that one.
Well, see, I was
Send
gonna.
that as well, but yeah, I think as far as the group projects, get back to that on Monday, once we have the feedback, what do you think?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna try and do this, and then if I have any notes, I would
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, like, especially looking at other people's stuff. Oh, and actually, I spent more time trying to change the little, beginning and ending points on the video than anything else. It's like,
True. And then I can have that problem just working in the straight editor.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's. All right.
Well, that's what I want, and they probably made it. I want to start those.
But yeah, I suggest Monday, and have a wonderful weekend.
I'm gonna see.
That's what's
If nothing else.
Okay, see you guys.
No worries, have fun.
Once we get it done, we can always go with that. It won't take that long. I don't think at that point, right? Wait, we can actually.
You should be okay with this, and you should log in with that. Yeah. We'll get it.
Or it's good on Google Drive, you know, so we, that way we don't get so, no, she has an app.
No, I'm just waiting for things to transfer over. My computer was having some weird problems, so I just formatted the whole thing.
Did you?
Sql Server was able to install just fine after I installed Microsoft Visual Studio in 2015. Got some weird errors, so now let's go 13. I'm used to that. So
Oh,
I installed 13. No problem.
Wait, so you submitted.
SQL Server, not a problem. Driving at the back.
Oh. I just looked
Install
at,
everything.
I just looked at it, I thought you said.
SQL Server installed just fine.
And like,
Visual Studio. So I just gave up, and there were other problems besides those programs that were causing some major errors.
And then-
Finally, I just said, forget it, pulled out a terabyte hard drive from the closet, formatted it, went along with this.
Yeah, I haven't generally has too much.
It
It's
was,
a common time, it's just,
it was a registry type error, it was a registry related error.
it's possible that the
I'm on it
video
now,
version
right now.
had been
But I have.
I was thinking, yeah, I used instance installation, but I think there was some old 2008 server files left over that were using the .NET framework of 3.5.2. 14 requires 3.5.1, and it kept using 3.5.2.
So, yeah,
It was this weird error, I didn't know how to fix it, so I just said,
Yeah, that's,
I want to go over it.
yeah, it was, it's really frustrating.
I had,
So the next thing we're gonna
I
do.
spent all day Friday.
Me too.
Every time I got to a certain point in the install, the blue screen.
Yes.
And then that was,
Good,
you know, that'd be okay, the blue screen comes out.
Sure.
Blue screen would start. So,
Like it frequency.
so I had to check my menu, check, the hard disk, and all this different stuff. I'll check out clean and, take over the box and you'll see the thing, you'll see the new thing. Pretty sure it was hard to read. I had to go to a restore. So I restored and everything was fine. So I tried to read everything. Restore plan.
This is how we search.
So Hyper-V, or Hyper-V, said
Yeah, so I think I'm good. Okay, then Monday we'll. Have you started any of the individual? Have you continued on those?
basically sharing around with the operating system.
Right.
So Rita was probably writing, wanting to adjust the memory registers.
Yeah.
And, we're in the meeting where I did isolate what I did and
Yeah.
isolated it. So,
Did you solve the problem?
that just didn't solve. And I just downloaded VMware.
Yeah, I like VMware a lot better.
Yeah.
I've used Hyper-V before. For VMware.
Yeah, I was just like, how do we?
Zero or.
Yeah.
So, And it has some
Yeah, that
nice
is one of
features, but
And so this is.
and it works
So that
perfectly
means
here.
every
So-
department can have 0 permanent employees, and every
Yeah, of course.
employee needs to
Yeah.
put one of them. This is not right. And then, well, actually, it's only, so this was one, so one person can have one students. Right? One employee has one out of one. And then.
That's much frustrating in the world. Other things that were happening on here, there's, in the Windows theme, in the resource file, in the Windows folder, there's hidden files that are bitmap
And then this is one.
type
inventory.
that load the screen, the initial screen,
Does that
like the graphics driver.
Have you taken my?
That doesn't get installed on the computer, and I guess mine's got corrupted or something happens. Registry problem.
Oh, thanks for checking.
My screen will never load, it will just get a white screen for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, we want to make sure like this. Oh, there you go, Matt. Was that? Oh, please. Thank you.
So,
And this is what I do all day. Yeah, my work, this is all I do. And I'm doing it fine with the group.
yeah, actually, started to get a little bit. Okay, so I think this one will ask you, just use your credit. So that's great. You're close. Yeah, installing the movies.
I think the waiting.
Yeah, just watching, watching YouTube. Worst disaster I ever had actually with Windows was an uninstalled Sql Server beta.
Yeah.
Which I should never well, it didn't uninstall. So it didn't really ruin my Windows. It ruined, I just could never get Visual Studio.
Yeah.
So I had to go through the registry. Because the uninstall failed.
Yeah, and left behind is all the old hidden files, folders, and registry files.
So frustrating. Yeah, actually, I mean, had a DOS window, this is way back. But I had a DOS window, but I wanted to clear off the disk. When I got to the control, I did that delete start. Yes, the deleted system. Delete C drive.
The whole screen go black like right away.
No, actually, it ran until I restarted it. It ran well, so it must have been just been that.
Yeah, yeah, you got really like, yeah, the stone ramp.
Yeah. So it took me forever. Because I was never going to accept it.
Right.
So I found a way to get to the network drives where it's working.
Sometimes use errors on the computer, so I turn it on and it works fine. No problems.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing in the world.
That's awesome.
I see that a lot. People are having a lot of problems because they don't know who it works.
So proud.
I had a guy come in, he couldn't figure out what was wrong with his computer.
I just want clarification.
Sure. Sure.
Mine can come here real quick. So I printed this out to do it. This is a many to many, right? And this is-
Right, and that's the mistake. This
That
same-
one is supposed to be.
Yeah, and I
not
meant
this
to,
one.
and I meant to change this.
So is that supposed to stay many?
Yes, this is a mini to mini.
Oh, okay.
This
Then
is
I
the
did
one
this
to
wrong.
mini. Yeah, that's
Okay,
okay.
so I think Tina might have done it wrong too. So this is a
I-
many to many courses. One person having a student, one
Mini-
student can take
mini
many
courses,
courses.
right.
Is this too messy for you if I hand it in like that?
No, that's.
Are you sure?
Oh, sounds
Yeah, so. This
I,
should be the one.
and that's I would not have taken anything off, I would have commented on it, but it's because this is in the wrong place, it should be at the bottom.
Are you sure that's not too messy for you?
Oh, you should say
Well, but still, I mean, we have to see it with the whole bunch of students.
it's-
We used it in ed in that 21, 22 class we're using. What is this? This is.
This is VMware.
And I'm used to using virtual machine. It's
Or VMware, Hyper-V.
Hyper-V, yeah, I like that so much more. I guess I'm just more used to it.
Yeah, although I was just saying I thought all day with Hyper-V at home because it was blue screening damage.
I think I'm just used to like, because I know we've been navigating around for 8 2-hour classes on it.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. Then I'll hand this to you.
sure, that's fine. If I can make out what's going on, it's fine.
Okay. But does this mean, this is a clarification,